Welcome to Collector's Comlink, a transmission dedicated to general collecting, both within and beyond the Star Wars universe. And in this transmission, we're heading back to the early 1990s, to a military base in Los Angeles where Hollywood showed up more often than you'd think. And one day, something pretty unexpected happened. Today's episode isn't about an autograph, a prop, or a rare figure. It's about a moment that was the culmination of a number of factors. The most important probably being my decision to join the military, more specifically the U.S. Coast Guard. After graduating from boot camp, I was assigned to a polar icebreaker, which carried me to both the Arctic and the Antarctic. I still remember the first time we broke through the ice at the top of the world, just an endless sheet of white stretching in every direction. It felt like another planet, and even more so when you stepped out onto the ice itself. It was always a little nerve-wracking. You never knew if your next step would land on solid ground or something thinner than expected. During our missions up north, the Coast Guard often supported the U.S. Geological Survey with scientific operations, so we'd be out there with them providing assistance and standing watch. One of the more common assignments? Polar bear watch. And that was no joke. We spotted quite a few of them, and more than once the scent wafting from our galley attracted a curious visitor or two. Let's just say, if you were on watch, you stayed sharp. Of course, heading south was a whole different experience. Antarctica had its own kind of silence, vast, surreal, and undisturbed. The light felt different, the cold somehow sharper. We supported scientific teams down there as well, offloading supplies, navigating icy channels, and landing for brief operations. Down south, we didn't have to worry about polar bears, but there were plenty of penguins, seals, and killer whales. The penguins were the best, just waddling around without a care in the world, often walking right up to us as if curious about what we were doing. In fact, none of the wildlife seemed afraid of us. They came across as more inquisitive and even friendly than anything else. Probably one of the most unique and interesting experiences in Antarctica was being able to gain access to the inside of Scott Hut. It was erected in 1911 by the British Antarctic Expedition of 1910 to 1913, led by Robert Falcon Scott. Normally this hut is kept under lock and key, but I just so happened to be there at a time when one of the scientists at McMurdo was about to briefly open it. Not even everyone in the crew had the opportunity to go inside, so this was a unique experience for me. Everything the original Scott crew brought was still there, even the dog biscuits. It was an amazing experience. Those deployments gave me a front row seat to places most people never get to see, and they stayed with me. Places like Bora Bora, Tasmania, Australia, Hong Kong, and Tokyo. I even did a 2-year tour in Guam, which became one of the most memorable and enjoyable chapters of my time in the Coast Guard. Both personally and professionally, it was a great experience, and one filled with its own adventures. Believe it or not, I even met Bobcat Goldthwait on that island. He was there for a morale event on one of the local bases. He was cracking me up by shaking his head and sighing, "I'm in Guam," with that great comedic flair. But before island life, I had an assignment at the Coast Guard base in Los Angeles, Long Beach. Actually, twice. I was stationed there both before and after Guam. Now, I'm not sharing all of this to provide some kind of military resume. I'm sharing it because those years were filled with incredible experiences, many of which shaped my life, even when I was stateside. And during one of those assignments, something unusual happened. Hollywood came knocking. That base was used for filming movies and television shows all the time. Just before I arrived, they had shot scenes from A Few Good Men out by the Admiral's quarters. After I arrived, it wasn't long before the crew from Baywatch rolled in. They filmed several episodes on our base, and like many of the folks stationed there, I ended up working as an extra in several of those productions. I did meet Alexandra Paul. She seemed to be the cast member whose scenes were mostly filmed on our base. I actually chatted with her a few times between takes. The first time she approached, she had this stern, focused look on her face, so I braced myself. But as soon as she got close, she broke into a big smile and a warm, friendly, "Hi." Thinking back on it now, that serious expression was probably part of the scene she was filming. Either way, it turned into a nice moment. I couldn't find all of my behind-the-scenes photos in time for this video, but I did manage to track down a few. Here's one of the Baywatch boat docked at our small boat station. Now, I never met Pamela Anderson, but I did meet and talk with her stunt double, who you can see in this photo right here. And in this same shot, that's Alexandra Paul, filming a scene with another actor who's dressed as a Coast Guard crew member. Just another day on base, turned into a piece of Hollywood. This was from another episode, filmed just outside our clubhouse. It was early morning and chilly, and I remember one detail clearly. To get the shot they wanted, the crew parked a van in front of the dumpsters, just across the roadway, and slapped a magnetic Coast Guard logo on the side. Simple, but ingenious. Instant set dressing. I figured being an extra on those shows would be the extent of my Hollywood experience. But then, something else came along. Word started spreading around the base. There was going to be a movie shoot, a big-budget production with some pretty big names attached. None of us knew exactly what to expect. Then, one day, my division chief called me into the office. He told me I was being assigned to assist with base security for one of the actors who would be arriving on set within the next day or two. The movie being filmed was Clear and Present Danger, and the actor I'd be assigned to turned out to be none other than Harrison Ford. Part of me wonders if my chief gave me the assignment because he knew how much I loved Star Wars. I mean, can you imagine this kid who grew up in this room being assigned to Harrison Ford? I was incredibly excited, but even so, I had to keep myself collected. This wasn't a fan moment. It was an official assignment, and I was representing the United States Coast Guard. So I had to maintain a level of decorum and do my job. Otherwise, I could only imagine what my chief would have to say.
Giggling like a bunch of young bros in a schoolyard.
Still, that didn't stop me from keeping my eyes open and my camera ready. I actually managed to snap a few behind-the-scenes photos during the shoot, each one a little better than the last. I was only able to track down 3 of them in time for this video, but there are more tucked away somewhere. For now, though, here's the first one. This shot shows Harrison Ford resting on a boom during setup for a scene meant to take place at a Coast Guard seizure dock in Puerto Rico. The irony? Nearly all of the scenes filmed at our base that week were cut from the final version of the film. This next shot shows Harrison grabbing some coffee from the catering table. If it looks a bit like a Bigfoot sighting, well, that's because I was trying to be discreet. These were not the days of cell phone cameras. I was carrying around a film camera in my pocket and trying not to draw attention to myself. While I did speak with Harrison a few times during filming, it would have felt rude to suddenly whip out a camera when I was standing just a few feet away. I was trying to strike a balance of being respectful while still finding a way to capture the moment. Eventually, before filming wrapped, Harrison approached me and my division chief while we were having a conversation. We had a bit of small talk, just casual, easygoing, and at one point I worked up the nerve to ask if it would be all right to get a photo with him. And true to form, he was gracious and kind and said yes. It turned out to be one of those quiet, unforgettable moments that stays with you. Here's that photo. Yours truly, with Harrison Ford. It's hard to believe that was 32 years ago. My division chief was actually glad I had asked for the photo because I shared a developed copy with him afterward. It really was a wonderful moment. At one point, I told him that I'd wanted to meet him ever since I was a kid. He chuckled and said he thought that we might have been the same age. And when he was called back to set, he even apologized for having to cut the conversation short. It wasn't ducking or casual, it was sincere and genuine. He was just incredibly down-to-earth, friendly, and gracious with his time. Harrison is not someone who makes the rounds at a lot of fan expos or conventions. So getting to meet one of the more elusive members of the original Star Wars cast was truly something special. I mean, come on, I met Indiana Jones and Han Solo at the same time. Who wouldn't be excited by that? Before we wrap up, I want to share one last filming experience, though this one didn't involve Harrison Ford. It actually happened just before I left the Los Angeles Long Beach station for the last time. Other films came along, but I was selected to be an extra for the movie The Perfect Storm. Now, I do not have any photos from that set or cast stories to share, but I do have something else. This original double-sided marquee, one sheet. It took me a while to get it properly framed, since it needs a lit background for full effect. I ended up ordering this backlit frame from Glowbox, and I absolutely love how it turned out. You can find versions of this double-sided poster online. But this one's a little different. There's no release date printed at the bottom. That's because we were given these before filming had even wrapped, back when the release date hadn't been finalized yet. So it's not just a poster, it's a small piece of the production itself. Looking back, I never could have imagined that my time in the Coast Guard would cross paths with the world of film and television in such unexpected ways. From Baywatch and The Perfect Storm to working security for Harrison Ford, these experiences weren't just about meeting celebrities. They became a unique part of my own story. I'm grateful I had the chance to live it, and even more grateful for the opportunity to share it with you. Until next time, thanks for watching.